UFC 294, Kamaru Usman stepped in to fill in for Paulo Costa and take on Khamzat Chimaev in a 3-round bout, which should have been 5, and according to Kamaru, had the opportunity to make it a 5-round fight. Declined for whatever reason. Apparently, not having a camp and coming in on short notice probably made him doubt his ability to go the full 5 rounds, even though he's renowned for his stamina. And that was supposed to be one of his advantages, is that he could fight 3 rounds, no problem, because he's a 5-round fighter. Well, that didn't happen. And as I was watching the fight, I almost forgot that it wasn't 5 rounds and was sort of surprised that it was ending after 3. But I just wasn't paying attention. I was so involved in the excitement of the fight. He had mentioned that he was coming in on short notice, and fans and people had mentioned that it's a built-in excuse if he loses, which he did. And then, of course, Alexander the Great Volkanovski stepping in on short notice, 12, 11 days notice, to fill in for Charles Oliveira. And those two guys both saved the card, essentially. Usman and Volkanovski saved the card and made it exciting. Volk fighting Makhachev was a rematch of a controversial decision from early this year. Islam, of course, had his hand raised, and a lot of fans thought that it could have been a draw or that Volk may have even won. Well, that whole score was settled when Islam Makhachev knocked out Volkanovski with a head kick and followed up with blows to the head in the first round and ended the fight. Now, what this video is more so about is the courage of those competitors, of those sportsmen. Of course, they're getting paid to fight, so stepping in on short notice, essentially less than 2 weeks notice, is a big deal when you're fighting for a championship in Volk's case, and when you're fighting a young, hungry wolf like Khamzat Chimaev, who's just determined and hungry to make his mark in the UFC. Of course, we all know he will smash everybody. He doesn't care. Those are his words. And now, after his last couple fights, defeating Burns and dominating Usman, he was able to take Usman down and, almost finished him in that first round, if not for Usman's championship heart, championship pedigree, and his ability to fight, on the ground and get himself up out of a very, very vulnerable position is what even allowed him to survive that. But what happened afterwards with those two guys, respectively, is kind of what concerned me. More so with Volk than with Usman, but I'll start with Usman. In some of his interviews after the fight, he had mentioned how he's lost his last 3 fights now, of course. Devastating knockout by a head kick, where he lost his title. Then, of course, he went for the rematch and lost a decision, and then now he loses this decision. So that's a KO and 2 decision losses in a row, 3 losses in a row, and he mentioned having some doubt about what that means for his future as a title contender. We're all human beings. We all have doubts. And you think of these people, they're tough. They go out in front of the world and display not only their physical durability and capabilities, but their mental discipline and focus and fortitude to be able to put themselves through the rigors of a training camp and the promotions and everything and all the stress that goes with promoting a fight and being in a fight of that magnitude. And of course, Volkanovski immediately mentioned several times, almost begging, which was kind of a sad part, is UFC, please keep me active, and mentioning several times how he can't stay right in the head if he's not fighting or training for a fight. And he even mentioned he's got a great family life, great wife. He has no reason to be depressed, but he almost hinted at the fact that without a fight on the immediate horizon for him, that he falls into a sort of depression. Now, we know there's been studies done that people who have suffered from CTE, such as football players, boxers, and of course, I'm sure any sort of combat sport fighter, MMA fighter, the multiple concussive blows to the brain can bring on depression. It can change a person's behavior. It can make them more violent. It can make them more suicidal, more extreme emotional feelings. And it looked like it's almost like someone in a fighter's camp, such as Volkanovski, should sort of limit him from expressing himself so freely after being knocked out so violently. Of course, we know they're human. We know they're vulnerable. We know they have all the same fears and insecurities as every one of us. They just handle them differently as far as we can see. But he repeatedly said that he needs to stay busy. Please keep me busy, and I can't get off my brain or whatever he was saying if he's not fighting. And I think some of that vulnerability and some of that overly emotional TMI stuff, especially on the part of Volk, was due to the head trauma that he just suffered just moments earlier. It's not good. You gotta sit back, say the bare minimum respectfully. As a loser, hey, the best man won, whatever the case may be, and just let your team take you back and you start the recovery process. These fighters, after they get knocked out, after they suffer heavy trauma to the head, maybe limit, if you're in their camp, maybe for the best interest of your, because this is a product at the end of the day, for the best interest of your PR look, is to not say so much when you're in that compromised, concussive state. I imagine, a violent kick like that to the head, followed up by some rabbit punches and some legal punches to the head, it's going to have you feeling loopy for sure. If anybody's ever been hit in the head, that old cartoon thing where the stars are spinning around your head, that's kind of like a good representation of how you feel. You're somewhere else, you're in La La Land. But respect to both men. They came in on short notice. They made it an exciting card. Um, they didn't have to put it on the line like that. They both had a lot to lose. Of course, they had a lot to gain, but I feel like they had more to lose as far as their ability to have absorb that type of punishment in their next fight or in fights going forward. Because you only have so much that you can take before you just can't take anymore. And they kind of put their legacies on the line, and no one's gonna discredit them for that. But they did lose, and we just got to remember, even though these guys are tough, even though they're fighters, even though they represent the elite performers in the combat sports world, they're still human at the end of the day. And love them or hate them as competitors, we always got to respect them as men, and of course as women, and as human beings first and foremost. I'm no expert. I just call it how I see it. Tell me what you think. Please engage in the comments. I like having these debates or just seeing what other people have to say. And if you appreciate the content, I'd appreciate a like. But until next time, UNO.